Welcome to our first Clinical Group Debrief. We are Lucy, Danny, and Jasmine. Our main goal for our clinical experience is to develop a deeper understanding of teaching with the insights and experiences our teacher mentors share with us. Danny's mentor is Michael Bolin, and he is the assistant principal at James Wood High School. Lucy and I's mentor is Jessica Morgan, the choral director and teacher at Woodgrove High School. Our discussions were guided by the weekly topic and guiding questions, and our conversations with our mentor teachers. My experience so far with my mentor teacher, Mrs. Morgan, has been very insightful. Some of my key takeaways so far include setting clear classroom expectations, encouraging parent involvement, and setting high expectations for students. Setting clear expectations for classroom behavior is one important element of effective classroom management. My mentor shared the choral handbook that she hands out to students at the beginning of the year. Her main expectations are be responsible, be respectful, and be ready. And in the handbook, she goes into more detail about how she expects students to behave, such as arriving to class on time and active listening during instruction. Having these expectations clearly stated helps prevent off-task and disruptive behavior. Mrs. Morgan mentions that she experiences very little behavioral problems in class as a result of her implementation of the classroom expectations. Mrs. Morgan also discussed setting high expectations for her students. She believes that students will be able to reach their potential if given proper guidance and encouragement. Mrs. Morgan wants her students to see themselves as professionals and music ambassadors who represent themselves, their school, and their choral program. So the students don't just see themselves as high schoolers in just any elective class, but as professionals and important representatives for their school. Mrs. Morgan also emphasizes the importance of getting parents involved and engaged in class. In her class, parents get involved by volunteering at choral events, doing things like chaperoning, driving, helping with the choral attire fittings, and working the concession stand. She also asked parents who were choral directors to come to class and lead student clinics. Parent involvement helps create a school community where parents and teachers work together to support and encourage students so that they can succeed. Here are some ways I will apply what I've learned from my mentor teacher in my future English classroom. Building relationships. In my future English classroom, I want to center my teaching around building relationships and making connections. I will do this by showing a genuine interest in my students and taking the time to know them as individuals. Creating a safe environment. I want my future students to feel safe and motivated to participate in class, and I will do this by establishing classroom rules that emphasize treating each other with respect and kindness, and modeling a positive attitude. Modeling a growth mindset. I want to help my students see themselves as writers and believe that they can grow and develop to become exceptional writers with practice, effort, and support. I will model a growth mindset by emphasizing strengths over weaknesses, centering feedback around growth and improvement, and modeling constructive feedback. Connecting and engaging with parents. I will work to develop consistent and productive communication with parents from early on, making sure we're working together to best support the student. I will also find ways to get them involved in class.
So why it matters? This is because teaching extends beyond merely just conveying information to students. There are various aspects that one needs to consider in order to be successful as a teacher. In my communication with my clinical mentor, we've definitely touched on a couple of those, trust being a major one of them, but also having a strong teaching philosophy, being a dynamic instructor, forming personal connections with students, effective communication with parents, and positive relationships. And when you do all of that, you're going to have students who are going to be giving you 2 enthusiastic thumbs up, and that's exactly what you want in comparison to, say, Ben Stein and Ferris Bueller. What you get from that is unmotivated students, and that's the last thing you want when you're teaching. Adding to the conversation with the people I've met, according to Linda Darlin Hammond in her article Challenging No Child Left Behind, she states that many first-year teachers are entering the school environment without any prior training, and this puts students at a disadvantage because these teachers are not prepared for the components that go beyond teaching specific material. In contrast, other countries are requiring their future teachers to go through a rigorous process that includes graduate work, understanding pedagogy, and completion of an internship. By doing this, first-year teachers are much more prepared and ready to interact with students. Another thing that's worth taking into consideration is parents. Parents are something that absolutely is going to be a part of our process when we're teaching, and we need to be prepared for that. Now, according to a chapter in Deborah Mayer's book, In Schools We Trust, she says that there is absolutely an emphasis on students, but we also need to place an emphasis on parents as well. And that comes into strong communication and building trust with those parents. She also provides a couple tips as to how that process can begin. And she mentions having clear objectives, being transparent with decision making, giving parents the opportunity to understand what is being taught inside the classroom, giving parents progress reports of their students, making sure that there is time dedicated to communicating with them, and then of course having next step strategies whenever necessary. This now leads into the now what. What are my personal takeaways and how will I apply them into my future classroom? Well, it's going to start with the reinforcement of the mantra that all students can learn, but it's not going to happen unless you take the time to make personal connections with your students. And a positive relationship with students are not just limited to them, it's also connecting to their parents, making sure you're establishing positive relationships with your parents, but also making sure that you're dedicating time for them as well. And last but not least, earning trust through honesty in the classroom. By doing all of this, I think I'm going to have a very strong, effective class.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucy and I am in a group with Jasmine and Dan who are great partners and are very helpful and informative during our clinical sessions, and they have a great sense of humor which has made this a lot of fun. Jessica Morgan is my mentor, which I share with Jasmine, and there's been some memorable quotes during our discussions that have really broadened my understanding of teaching and teaching experience. So one of the things that we had talked about really was equality and advocacy, and some of the things that she had discussed over her time as being a teacher is really how she's seen positive results of equity training over the last few years, really changing how teachers and how the staff treat each other and the children. So I think that that is a positive as we continue to move forward with our education together on equality. And then also on advocacy, which is really understanding what you believe in and wanting to stand up for and being able to then share those views with others. So we create that advocacy leadership within schools. So I thought that that conversation that she had placed not only just on equity, but the advocacy that she's had and the way that her and the other teachers have developed kind of an advocacy for the students has been really important. Lastly, I liked her discussion when we were talking about relationships. We had gotten into a very detailed conversation about whether we like, whether kids felt liked or not liked by teachers, or teachers didn't like students, and she had shared her view that really and I agree with this, that most teachers, don't not like students. We really don't feel that way. I think maybe we can get frustrated and we want to help children out. And this doesn't always go the way that we want it to, but it's one of those things where you continue to try and you work with those students. So it's not really a dislike or a like issue. It's more of a calling, and that you continue to support throughout your development as a teacher and your profession as a teacher. And then some of the things that I thought from the people that I've met that has really broadened my understanding as well, both from Ellen Langer and then Elizabeth Moye, really looking at how your mental focus can really help change your perspective on growth. So really it's your own mindset. We set our own limitations. We set those limitations upon ourselves. So that's really something that Ellen had talked about that I really agree with, and that I want to continue or integrate within my own teaching experience. And then also Elizabeth Moye was really figuring out how to extend what we do as teachers outside of school. So how can we help students outside of school more? So I liked a couple of the things she said of looking for resources and growth with kids outside of school, and working with the communities to be able to do that. So I think a lot of those things that they've brought to bear with Ellen and Elizabeth especially has helped kind of dovetail nicely into what we've been talking about in class, and also what we've been doing with our clinical experience. Now, what will I do with all of that new information that I have been able to glean? I really think that I don't think you ever stop learning, right? So I think that a lot of this is helping to refine my teaching philosophy and reminding me that I need to be open to new ideas. So as long as I'm doing those two things, and maintaining an open aperture on what's going on, I think that can only help myself, as a teacher, and then also my students. I want to empower my students with a can-do-anything attitude, and that really goes back to the discussion that I had about Ellen Langner and how we set our own limitations. So I want my students to set their own limitations and have no one else set them for them. I want to ask questions first. Really, I think that questioning is the key thing that teachers can do, and I want to continue to do that. I want to be organized and prepared. If we're not organized and prepared, I won't have enough time to help my students. And I think that that's something that you need that time to be able to be there for your students and to develop that relationship. And you need to do it in an authentic way, because kids know when you're being inauthentic. They know when you're frustrated. They know when you're unhappy. They see it. They feel it. Kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. So authenticity is a big thing that I want to make sure I maintain. And then really, I want to develop a network. And that's really something from this clinical experience that I've learned, is that you can't do anything alone. And you don't always have all the answers. So Jasmine and Dan, and then the people that I've met, and my mentor, Ms. Morgan, they've helped really round me out and bring in new perspectives. So I think creating that network of support with other teachers, with team members, with parents and students, it can only help you in the long run. So I'm hoping that I will take these things, and this is what I'm going to do about it.